You're still vegan, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I make it
Okay.
vegan.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I switched over. I'm vegan now too.
Oh, congratulations. I see the stuff you be eating. You be eating all them bird seeds and stuff. I'm just playing. You
Listen,
know the
listen. You know what it is? At first I was saying to myself, I'll do 1 week vegan, then 1 week I'll be an omnivore for 1 week and I'll just switch off. But I had so much energy during my vegan week. I said, why stop? And then
right.
because I kind of got out of my head and stopped telling myself to be vegan only means to eat salad and tofu. And
Yeah,
now that I
definitely
have,
not that.
it's not. And now I think honestly, I think what it is folks just need to have the time to prep. If I had one complaint about this vegan lifestyle is the amount of prep that goes into it.
Okay.
Cutting up vegetables and things of that sort, and then also
Yeah.
making sure that you don't eat too much starch because it's very easy to eat a lot of pasta, spaghetti, bread, and
Yep. And then you'll be just as big.
say something careful.
Not saying you'll be just as big. You'll gain just the same amount of weight. Well, probably not, but you'll just be like, I mean, I've seen like, out of quote unquote out of shape vegetarians and stuff. So,
Yeah.
but nothing wrong with being out of shape neither, you know.
No,
Just
it's
do
nothing
what
wrong
you
with being
do.
out of shape. There's definitely
Do your
nothing,
thing.
but you definitely balance because if you keep eating bread, I found out from my doctor that there's trans fat in a lot of these breads we eat, especially in bagels, and so it can elevate your cholesterol levels. So, not saying bread is bad, but if we're talking about our body stuff, you do need to be a little bit mindful what you're putting in your body so you don't live on medication for the rest of your life. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Is there anything on the podcast that you want to make sure we talk about?
Um, Not really. I know we're going to cover teacher burnout, how to recover from teacher burnout, standardized testing, the grows and glows of it, because the standardized testing isn't 100% bad. I don't like it, period, but you have to assess kids. Um, then I guess I could promote the conscious pedagogue, and then I could promote some work that I plan on doing within the next, I guess, 60 or 30 days. That's about it.
Okay. All right. You sure it's everything?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
All right. Let's make it happen then. Welcome to the T Simple Podcast. That was loud. Welcome to the T Simple Podcast. We focus on providing simple solutions in the classroom. I have my sister Aurora, and that's it. No last name. It's just, Aurora, because she's super dope. She has like 7 names. You'll never find her. She's a silent assassin, teacher in New York. She's doing summer school teaching with the fifth graders, you said right now?
Great. Yes.
Yep. So she went from secondary to mini secondary, but she's, a really passionate teacher. So she's just trying to, be around kids and get paid. Payday happened for us today. And so we balling on a budget. You understand what I mean? I'm about to go get me some jambalaya. What's the first thing? So when you get paid as a teacher, I guess like what is like the 2 items that you kind of like splurge on, and then you're like, okay, y'all, I gotta chill. Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
I would say takeout. I definitely ordered out today. I bought some vegan food on Uber Eats. And
Okay. Ooh.
yeah. And as we all know, those delivery fees with Uber are ridiculous.
Ooh.
That's why it's once every paycheck. That's it. Because those fees add up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And would you say kind of like, because we're going to talk about like teacher burnout, but I'm just, just kind of thinking about it. I'm curious to know how much do you think like our salary contributes to our burnout? Let's say if like we were, I'm sorry, my cat just dropped my computer.
Oh, oh
Let me see
no.
it real quick. Okay, it's fine. Um, I'm sorry, what was I saying?
How does our salary contribute to teacher burnout?
Yeah. So do you think that like happens? Like our salary, do you think that contributes to our teacher burnout? Like if we made more, we probably wouldn't burn out as much.
Oh, absolutely. Teachers, especially depending on what state you're in, teachers are significantly underpaid. And
Mm,
a lot of folks don't take into account supplies that teachers pay for out of pocket. Sometimes our school districts may not be a wealthy school district. So supplies like paper that helps develop printouts, or if you're dealing with the little kids, I'm finding out they need manipulatives. They need all these other little bells, whistles, and knickknacks to kind of keep them motivated and engaged.
right.
And in the beginning of the school year, the principal has a small, tiny little budget, if that. And by the time maybe October rolls around, that budget is exhausted.
Right.
So a teacher now has to figure out, okay, I need chart paper. Chart paper is very expensive. I need markers. Markers, the good markers, the Crayola markers, they're not cheap. And so also kids are kids, they lose things. So you have to replenish what they lose. So all of those things chip away at our salary. And again, depending on where you live, in New York, the average apartment is 1,500 a month, and that's below market rate. And the average rate apartment here, or excuse me, the at market rate for an apartment here is 2,000 a month. And teachers' base salary in New York City doesn't even cover that. So a lot of teachers
Yeah.
resort to having multiple roommates, and then that's a whole nother situation within itself. So it is very stressful around when you consider all of those factors.
And psychology today describes burnout as the state of being chronically stressed that leads to physical and emotional exhaustion, cynicism, detachment, and the feeling of ineffectiveness and a lack of accomplishment. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
And teaching is such a mental thing, right? I remember I did like this all girls robotics camp when I was like a senior in college. And it was literally a whole day process, but I enjoyed it because I love being around kids. But I remember when I got home, 7 o'clock, I laid my butt down. I didn't wake up until 7 o'clock that morning. You know, understand what I mean? Because I was so mentally tired, right?
Mm,
And not only do we get burnout from our salary, but we even just get burnout just from doing our jobs, right? Even just like doing our jobs well. And that's kind of like the angle we want to talk about today. Like, how does getting great scores, right? Doing well on standardized tests, right? This concept that I introduced when No Child Left Behind happened, when Bush was in office around the early 2000s, and literally it was saying that oh my gosh, I'm going blank. But pretty much it was saying like, schools are going to be judged by these scores. And if you're not meeting these scores, then you get pretty much held by the state or some type of emergency manager. And that doesn't work out, you get shut down, right? And so you have this quantitative just, clearance you need to meet. And so many things get sacrificed. So just kind of like just talk about that just from hearing what, just, yeah. Because you are a score teacher. You get scores, you get data, right? But at the same time, you still get burnt out, and that is not supposed to happen.
ab- um, definitely when it comes to these federal legislations over education, I think we need to find that most of these late later, excuse me, they do not have any experience in education. So for these
Mm,
individuals, they see students uh, they that are not performing at level, and there's immediately this chaos to blame someone. Someone has to be blamed for the fact that we have a bunch of students who are graduating out of school that cannot do basic
other
math,
skills,
or right, they can't do college level math or basic college level math or reading and what have you. And so someone has to take the blame. And a lot of this fear mongering regarding the achievement gap
yeah,
actually dates back to the 60s and 70s with the A Nation at Risk report, which was actually very, very racist, in which you had a doctor, I forgot his name, kind of sound the alarm saying America's going to be behind the rest of the world if we do not tackle the achievement gap that's happening in predominantly communities of color.
right,
And
Yeah.
so we're seeing these same ideas and policies kind of being recycled and just repackaged with a different name. But what happens is you now have legislatures telling us, teachers, you're not doing your job, you're doing terrible, the kids can't read, the kids can't write, the kids can't calculate. And so the only solution to resolve that problem is to put your job on the line. And hopefully that
Mm,
pressure, that punishment if you don't perform, will inspire you to become a better teacher, and these and students will be at the level that we deem to be appropriate. And as we all know, that definitely does not resolve the problem. Instead, that then creates school deserts where now you have
mm,
communities being underserved because of the fact that schools could be closed down, or um, if a school has been marked as underperforming, you will then either receive less qualified or experienced applicants trying to work in that school, and that school can either have a bunch of teachers that are underqualified, that don't have experience or brand new to the
yeah.
profession, or that school will not have enough teachers to service that community, all because people are afraid of their job security because of these federal laws in place.
And I mean, it's a sense of urgency, right? Because we ranked, you know, not dead last, but we weren't competitive, you know, amongst the other countries. And so there's this tremendous sense of urgency. And what happens when you have a sense of urgency, which is an aspect of white supremacy culture, a lot of people get ran over. And unfortunately is usually, you know, our people. And so just kind of talk about like what was the first time you realized, you know, despite you getting these numbers, you are getting burnt out?
I would say 3 years ago is when I probably had my first experience with burnout. I've been a teacher now for about 7 years, and when I first started teaching, my first pass rate was 66%. Then I kind of leveled out between 66 and 68%. And um, I am a perfectionist. I am an overachieving person. And so for me, I'm thinking, whoa, that's unacceptable. And I mean, aside for my own,
Mm,
I'm thinking to myself, for that 66% of kids that are passing, there's another percentage that are going to have to repeat the course. And we all know that when students fail or don't receive a good score at something, that takes a toll on their self-esteem. And so now trying to have them retake a test becomes a two-part system where now you're trying to teach them content, but also now you're trying to
motivate
uh,
them.
motivate them to even want to show up to class. So
Mm,
have an additional task ahead of you. But yeah, 3 years ago, I said to myself, no more. This is going to be the year where I perform in a way that is suitable to my personal standards for myself. And in a way that wasn't fair, because there were a lot of
mm,
factors that I did not consider. For one, I internalized my I internalized a lot. I didn't take into
mm,
that when I that year, I only had been a teacher for 3 years. I didn't
right.
a coach at the time. I didn't have a good support system. The teachers at the time that I was surrounded by, actually had a lower pass rate than what I had, the ones that came before me. And so it's not like I had someone instructing me on how to do effective teaching, and I had to teach
Right.
myself. And so that year where I was able to get the 89% pass rate, my school hired a new instructional coach, who honestly taught me everything that I know today. And it's because of the fact that I had an experienced teacher to work alongside me consistently. Because a lot of schools hire these instructional coaches, but you only see them once a month. And that's not enough time.
Right.
You're somebody for once a month for one class period, which is 50 minutes, 45 minutes, again, depending on where you teach. And that is not a sufficient enough amount of time to teach someone how to teach kids the skills. Because essentially, with these standardized tests, it's not so much the content. I'll be honest with you, it's honestly a skill based, it's mostly these tests are skill based assessments. So if a kid knows how to read critically or do critical writing, they could look at a document, interpret, and use context clues, and they could answer any question
Yeah.
with just a minimal amount of information. And I'm talking about literacy-based exams now. They could use that in order to guide them. Now, of course, when we're talking about math and science, that's totally different. So I don't want to mischaracterize other subjects. But I definitely say because that year I had a new instructional coach, which worked with me at least 4 days a week. And I was so driven to do well that I did working lunches where during my lunch, she had her lunch, I had mine, and we
Yeah.
literally and planning. And lastly, um, at that time I was in charter school, and charter schools are a revolving door of teachers. A lot of teachers leave. And so the new teachers that came in, we developed a friendship and a bond. So we were collaborating. So those folks were teaching me their skills and critiquing my lessons based upon what their strengths were in the classroom, and I did the same thing with their lessons. And I'll be honest, all of that feedback and that collaboration allowed for my best lessons to flourish or be developed.
Right.
And
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh no, and I said, and so no, I was gonna say, so ideally, uh that's the best way to enhance a teacher, where they have someone that's working with them that has more experience than them, and then also to have colleagues that they can work with and they can collaborate on lessons and materials together. That's how you kind of slow down the burnout, because you don't feel like you're alone and
Long. And that's literally all we have, but we deserve more, because we just talked about like our salary. And my next question is literally like, what is that lifestyle is like? Like, what time are you waking up? Are you like, taking care of yourself? Are you able to take care of yourself? Like, is the scores giving you something back that's mentally or physically, just needed for your endurance?
uh I think a lot of folks that are going to view this podcast are going to be like, "Wait, what? She did what? Oh my God!" I did not have a life that year, and I'll be honest. Even though the rewards were wonderful, the data was great. The principals loved me, the board of the school loved me, but that year broke me. To be honest with you,
Um,
despite the fact that the rewards were great. Like the kids did
so
phenomenal.
let me pause you real quick. So you said that when you had your highest scores, instead of it pushing you, it broke you.
It broke me mentally.
Okay, continue, please. Sorry.
No problem. It's because I became so obsessed with getting a
Mm,
high pass rate where I literally would have anxiety attacks in the middle of the night,
mm,
and I would wake up maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and pull out my laptop, and I'd say to myself, I need to develop better questions. I would start dreaming about essential questions and focus questions and activities. Even during my commute, I took public transportation. So even while I was on the train and the bus, I have my G Suite apps open, and I'm making PowerPoints on my phone while I'm commuting and making
mhm.
work on my phone while I'm commuting. So I became consumed. Every time my kids did an exit ticket, I did my pass rate after every single exit ticket. And there were some moments where if kids didn't grasp a concept, I would lash out. I'm like, guys, we only have a 50% pass rate. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. And the kids are like, wait, what? Miss, I didn't understand the constitutional principle of popular sovereignty. And I'm like, that's unacceptable. And then I had to pull myself back and say, whoa, relax. And I would
Okay.
apologize to my kids for kind of snapping on them because they didn't grasp the concept. But then I would apologize to them, but then I would internalize the students' result
Need.
exit tickets as this is because I'm a failure as a teacher. This is because I'm not teaching right. This is because I'm not using the right language to explain concepts correctly.
Yeah.
And I became literally obsessed from, again, panic attacks 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to then whipping out my laptop and creating new PowerPoints from things I already created. Um, my weekends were spent with me waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, going to my local Starbucks and sitting in Starbucks for 7 hours with maybe 2 cups of coffee, a butter croissant, and I'm just typing away at my computer. And
Wow.
I would then, after creating these materials, I would then test them out on my friends. I would uh, I would tell people, come over to the house real quick. Hey, I need you to look at this worksheet and I need you to read the instructions, read the and
What?
yeah,
Wow.
I need your feedback. What did you learn? And my friends are like, wait, what? like, wait, are you quizzing me? And I'm like, absolutely. I need to know, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Do you understand the history of this worksheet now that you're reading it? And they're like, oh, Aurora, you're bugging out. And I'm like, I'm not bugging out. I'm not a failure and I will not fail. And you will help these kids by answering this worksheet. And they did it. They actually did it. And they would tell me, they were like, yeah, this question was a little too abstract. This question, made sense. Like it was easy. Okay, it makes sense, but literally I was consumed for an entire year. And I remember after my kids took the test, well, when my kids got the test, because you're able to see the test once it's administered, I was freaking out. That test was so hard. I'm like, oh my God. Do they understand these questions? Do they understand the documents? Are they doing all these historical thinking skills?
Yeah.
And so slowly kids, as they finished their test, came down. They were like, Miss, that was the easiest test I ever took. And I'm like, really? Are you sure? And in my head, I'm like, nah, nah, nah. I think I just hyped them up. So I bought them this big breakfast and stuff. So, and I did like a pep rally for them. So I'm like, nah, they just hyped from that pep rally. And when the scores came in and I saw the 89% pass rate, I cried. I'll
Wow.
I literally cried. I cried, hyperventilated. I mean, that ugly cry with the snot and the red face and the tears. Yeah. Yeah, to the point that my principal said,
You all
"Are
right?
you okay? You good?
You need
Like,
you need
should
me to
you
step
be
out?
around yeah, you should be around kids right now because are you having a mental breakdown?" I said, "No, I literally spent the past 180 days, um,
Oh,
obsessing over
wow.
these kids and putting my family and my friends through these like focus groups almost where I'm forcing them to take do these assignments and I stayed up so many nights and I probably should have bought stock in Starbucks because of how much I spent in Starbucks every weekend.
Yeah.
And it was I guess it was all worth it for the kids, but it wasn't worth it for me because the downside of the high pass rate or when you then become labeled as the guru teacher or the standardized test guru is the principal expects you to do it again and not only do it again,
Do
either
it
get
better.
pass rate or do better. So that following year was the year that I quit that school and went someplace else because I could not do that again. I just could not do it again. And I felt bad because I left in the middle of the school year. I left in December.
Wow.
That was hard because these kids, the kids that I ended up getting, they were kids that I've been able to interact with ever since they were ninth graders, and they were all so hyped and excited to have me as a teacher. And I enjoyed my time with them, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because I started those old habits again, waking up middle of the night, not taking any time out for myself, obsessing over pass rates. I said, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I have to go. I have to go someplace else where nobody knows me. And I won't have that pressure to be the guru. I don't want that anymore. I did it. I could say I did it. I guess that's a badge on my sleeve, but I'll never do that again. I can't.
Yo, shout out to Star Butler, man. You know,
Yeah,
you
no,
are
hard.
yeah, nah, you are definitely. That's why I'm really happy you came on the podcast. I remember when we had our first podcast about the conscious pedagogue. I remember you pretty much saying how like you don't like to reuse the same lesson, you like to recreate the lesson, right? And then I remember you saying, if you can teach, you don't need a PowerPoint and a projector. All you need is a marker. You know what I'm saying? And so like people would hear that story and be kind of like inspired, right? And probably try to imitate that. But that's not the point of what we're saying. We're saying that we have a broken system that is not cultivating geniuses, right? It's just using us. And it's in the long run, right? The kids end up kind of like, okay, yeah, I passed, but it's like, was all that worth it? Did we really get our return on investment? And I just really appreciate you being honest about that, because hearing your story, people will probably envy that or try to imitate that or try to do that, because that's kind of like what we're told to do. And I feel like some of my friends do that all the time. But education is different from schooling. And what we want to achieve for our kids is way bigger than a test. You
Right,
know,
exactly.
that makes sense?
It makes complete sense. Um, it does. I mean, if I don't want to say that a teacher, if you're an ambitious person, um, and you want to make your mark somewhere, or if you have a certain standard set for yourself, I'm not going to tell somebody, oh, don't do it, take your time, go at it, do it. I did it.
Uh-huh.
Just know the consequences that come with trying to be perfect.
Right.
Um, you neglect your family, you neglect your friends, you isolate yourself. And if you are okay with what comes with being the perfect teacher, or what we consider to be the perfect teacher, then do it. There are, I know some educators that they are okay with always performing like that. They like the adrenaline rush that comes with that stressful environment. For some folks it's not stressful, it's adrenaline. They're
Mm-hmm.
competitive. They're like, wait, I could outdo that. I could
Mm-hmm.
outdo my previous score. Oh, no, 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 I could become better. And if you are that type of person, then go do it. um I learned that I'm not. Once I do it once, then I'm over it. I wanted a new challenge. I can say that I've done it. I can say that if somebody wants help on how to get high pass rates on standardized tests, I can help you do that. I just don't want that for myself anymore. And so now I'm in a position where I do not teach for standardized tests anymore. Oh,
Yeah.
I probably should have told you that. Yeah,
I
I'm
knew
at.
that already. You told me that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
now
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a brand new school, and
Mm-hmm.
school does not have to give kids a standardized test. And I love that, because now I could explore my teaching abilities more creatively. I don't feel like I'm in a box. But again, because I've had the experience of that high pass rate, I could do it again. I just don't want to. I'm done. I don't want that life again. I don't want it. I don't want to.
These standardized tests are very skills based, like you talked about it. And Dr. Goldie Muhammad talks about just Black excellence and how it being it's five things, right? So skills is obviously one of them, right? But you also have to have a high level of intellectualism, right? You have to be able to, question not question things, but you want to learn, right? You want to learn not only about your frame of reference, but other people's frame of references, so you can differentiate between yours and grow, right? Having a level of criticality, right? So just being critical of the world and having a critical lens when you see things that may seem the same, but it may not be, right? That's how people get tripped off false equivalencies a lot, right? You see that a lot in the news. Joy, right? Just making sure you have joy in the classroom, right? And then the last one is just identity, right? So how does your identity as a Black man or a homosexual or someone, who's Asian American in this society, what is it, right? How do you operate around it, and how can you, help other people identify? But skills is just one aspect of that. But what do you think? First of all, do you agree with that? And then what do you think is the balance, right? So like if it's not the test, the motivation, what is that?
I definitely agree with Dr. Muhammad's stance on how to cultivate, because I actually am reading her book, Cultivating Genius. Um, I'm learning more about those different tenets of how to establish a kid's intellect through these through these five different tenets. And it is possible. Um, Before I knew about Dr. Goldie Muhammad's work, my framework was based on Gladson Billings' culturally relevant pedagogy. That
Mhm.
is the foundation of who I am as an educator, first and foremost. And um, I think at first, when I started teaching, I thought that, a theory is a theory. It's one of those ideas that are abstract that sound great and wonderful, but nobody tells you how to execute it. And so I think
Mm,
once I became confident in my own teaching abilities and had some experience with a standardized test and what type of questions are being asked on this test, once that year came around where I had those test results, um, I was able to merge that framework with what the requirements of
right.
this test were. But I think that with anything, a person needs experience. So also a person really needs to master their own content. By that time, I was teaching for 4 years. And so, I knew basic US history, world history. So I needed to deepen my understanding. So I started reading books on my own that taught me information that wasn't required on the exam and things that I thought were cool, I shared with my students. But then I had to think to myself, well, how is this beneficial to the kids? How does this support who they are? How does this information help develop their cultural identity? And I had to figure out ways to make things relevant to the kids. And
Mm,
that took a lot of work. And it
work.
took a lot of work. And also, it took the eyes of other people to help guide me too, because some of my questions made no sense. But it's because of the fact that I think, and I'll be very honest, I taught the kids the baseline information for what they needed to know for the test. So all the kids knew the who, what, when, where, why. They knew all of that.
Right.
But the skill part, and I guess the cultivating the genius part, came with the supplemental materials that I provided them with. And that came from my personal library. That came from while I was reading whatever questions or annotations I made in my book, I gave those to the kids. And you should have saw these kids honestly grapple with some of these questions. And I'll actually give you an example. When I had to teach the imperialism unit, where pretty much you're learning about, at least with US history, you're learning about how America subjugated all these nations. And so I had a bunch of kids that identified as Puerto Rican,
Yeah.
and by that time, Hurricane Maria came. So a lot of my
Mm,
students had family members
right.
that were devastated by the hurricane. And so we looked at how Donald Trump responded. Remember that infamous video of him throwing paper towels at people? So, I showed the kids that and I said, well, let's compare this response to what was done in Texas. What's the difference? And they're like, oh yeah, they actually provided aid here. Meanwhile, it looks like Donald Trump is doing a photo op and throwing paper towels at people. And I said, well, what does that show you about how America views Puerto Rico? Oh, America doesn't have respect. And again, got to always connect it back. I'm like, well, how do you see that? Well, because we saw this response, that
Yeah.
response at, we're looking at figures and tables and numbers and looking at how much money goes towards states. Because remember, Puerto Rico is not a state, it's a territory. And I asked, I said, so what do you think the island nation of Puerto Rico should do now that it's that they're only getting paper towels and a bunch of people saying I'm going to pray for you? And the kids were like, well, miss, I mean, since it's not a state, why doesn't it become independent? Now these are the kids saying it, not
Right.
or they should apply to become a state. Because
Right.
also kids are learning, and again, I didn't have to teach this, but I told kids that
Truth.
even though people in Puerto Rico are citizens, um, when it comes to the presidential elections, folks have to travel to one of the 50 states in order to cast their vote. They also don't have, and also Puerto Ricans don't have any federal representation in Congress.
Congress.
So what is the purpose of having this island nation as a territory
If you
when
don't
they
have
have
any
to travel
representation.
and right? And these kids are honestly like processing these things. I'm like, so is this a violation of their of constitutional or is this a violation of their constitutional rights? And the kids were like, well, technically, if they're not, like technically they're citizens and this is a violation. So the kids are piecing this all together. This is not me. This is literally me giving kids the skill of how to read a legal text. This is kids transferring their understanding of the Constitution to real life events that impact them because now they care because they're like, whoa, my family does not have any food or water right now. So I'm trying to
Mhm.
figure out how can I help my family out. Then I had one kid, he said, I want to be the mayor of Puerto Rico. I said, okay. He said, or I want to try and fight for the independence of my country. This is a kid saying that
Right.
because, like, we're being used. And same thing when Puerto Ricans became citizens. That was in 1917. And that was while we were fighting in World War II. And Woodrow Wilson all of a sudden says, yeah, you know what? Why don't Puerto Ricans become citizens? Now, at that time, Puerto Rico had already been a territory of the United States since 1898 after the end of the Spanish American War. Sorry, folks, history teacher, can't help it. Um, and so the kids start thinking to themselves, well, looking at the timeline here, why all of a sudden are we looking at Puerto Ricans to be citizens? Coincidentally enough, we're in a conflict. So what does this show about how the American government views Puerto Rican bodies? And again, all of these conversations, the kids are, and again, none of this had to be taught. And the students are looking at this and they're piecing all of these things together. And it's because of these types of lessons. And I know some folks are going to look at this podcast and say, oh my God, you're trying to teach these kids how to hate America. Absolutely not. I'm actually teaching kids
No.
how to be critical thinkers. And there's nothing wrong with critiquing your government. If somebody does something wrong, you tell them. There's nothing wrong with telling somebody you are wrong. And then just fix it. That's it. And now kids are learning, hey, you know what? America has made some mistakes. America has done some things that were unethical. And now what can we do to resolve the mistakes of the past? And that's what I guess at the end, because I always ask kids, well, what's the solution? And kids always come up with a solution, and those skills and those ideas, those thoughts, those conversations that happen in my classroom, believe it or not, transferred into their essays for the standardized test. So whoever was grading
Mm.
the test is thinking, holy cow, this kid is thinking when you look at the rubrics, right?
Critical.
It's critical thinking, it's critical analysis, and also it's mastery of content.
Yep.
So again, uh,
Wow. Good
it
job.
does. That was a 3 a.m. That was a 3 a.m. lesson. That was the lesson I
Oh
created.
no. No, I'm going back to sleep.
Yeah. These lessons. That lesson was created at 3 o'clock in the morning,
But
and then fixed during my commute. Yeah.
so we're about to close, but this has been really great. I hope you're enjoying yourself. Hopefully this is like therapeutic as well.
Very.
Good. That's what's up. So my favorite white lady, Dr. Jane Elliott, she said, I'm an educator. I'm supposed to make you less ignorant. Like that is my job, right? You don't have to like me, whatever, but my job is to make you less ignorant. And you're literally just making the case of why we need to pay teachers more, especially if we really want this culturally, because people are saying they want culturally relevant or cultivating of the genius type teaching, but they don't want to pay that, right? And they don't really understand the amount of work. Like you said, I remember from my last podcast is that if you want to teach culturally relevantly, you have to kind of do double the work because you're taking something and you have to literally convert it to something that's culturally relevant. That's more time. That's more time you're not getting paid for. That's energy that you're not getting paid to do. You understand what I mean? And so you're literally just making the case on why your website is needed, more websites like your websites are needed, because you also critique like websites like what's the websites that
Oh, teachers pay teachers.
right, those lesson plans, right? And how you say like they're not really that good, no shots, right? But they're not it. It's not, excuse me, they're not enough. That's what I would say. They're not like good. They're just not enough depending on what our kids specifically need, especially we're talking about with Dr. Goldie Muhammad, right? And so yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, like we need to get paid more. That's what we started with. You understand? We're doing double the work. Pay us for double the work so we can allow kids to create. Because you just literally laid it down. You did all the extra work so they could get the mastery, but you didn't get paid for that.
Right. Definitely, I think teachers need to be paid a lot more. I think too, there needs to be more investment in teacher training in-house. I think
Right.
teachers should be conducting professional development in schools. I don't think, and no offense to the consultants out there, because I'm kind of one of them, but I think that when you outsource professional developments, I think everybody kind of shuts down. They're like, "Oh, who's this know-it-all somebody that I never knew?" But
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think people respect professional development when it's done by somebody that they see every day. And then
Very
also,
true.
I do think uh, principals should be provided more money where they can actually pay their teachers to come in for a solid 30 days during the summer, of course, optional for a teacher to refresh their curriculum. And they should be paid between $60 and $80 an hour, because it's not easy. It's not easy work. I also think that assigning more teacher leadership roles in a school that have an incentive attached to it is also another solution. Again, keeping things in house, but definitely state legislatures need to, especially now after this pandemic, really need to look at teachers as essential workers. We
They
literally
are essential workers.
we are, but
We're
many
not
folks
treated
did
like it
not realize that
till the pandemic.
until after this pandemic,
Right.
because now folks are forced to sit at home with their kid and then find out, whoa, like this math is not the same type of math that I learned as a kid. It's taught differently. It's the same equations, the same, you're going to produce the same results, but it's just the way you have to do it is different. And I think now folks are having more of an appreciation for teachers and learning that it's not it's more than just a PowerPoint and a worksheet. It has to be graded. We have to look at data. We have to do tutoring. We have to do all these after hour things, reaching out,
Manage
calling parents, all of these things. And I think now parents actually, well, most parents had an opportunity to realize like, whoa, these teachers
got skills.
their job does not end after 3 p.m. It
Nope.
does not. Because remember, we're also the club coach. We're
Yep.
also the coach of the basketball teams and the other sports teams. We're also helping kids with college readiness or other programs, helping kids fill out their college applications, scholarship applications, all of these things that it's more than just 8 a.m. to 3. And I hope hope, especially because all these stimulus checks were given out. So this money's somewhere there. So Biden open up the coffers. Okay. Pay teachers. And I think too, when you pay somebody, they'll do more for you. If a
But
te-
go
Mhm.
ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, if a teacher knows that they are appreciated, and that appreciation is more than just a bottle of wine, or that appreciation is more than just a gift card to Panera Bread, that you're actually giving them something that can help improve their quality of life, then just like the kids, they will rise to the occasion and put more effort into their craft.
And we won't have to do all those extracurricular activities just so we can make sure we stay afloat. You understand what I mean? Right? We can just focus on teaching and we can just do the extracurriculars just for fun. Because coaches don't get paid a lot.
No, oh really?
High school coaches do not get paid a lot.
Really? See, I can't even kick a football, so I wouldn't know. But I that's crazy.
I may be wrong, but I don't think they get paid a lot. And say you win the championship, you know what I'm saying? Like, what do you get for that? And so but You know why won't they pay us? They won't pay us because if they pay us, they're gonna have to pay everybody else. They're gonna have to pay like the janitors. They're gonna have to pay the lunch ladies. They're gonna have to pay, all the other essential workers that keep this society moving. But you got to understand, you can't have a better society if you don't invest in it, man. And I think that's the climax that we're at right now. That's why they're fighting in Congress, because you have two Democrats that don't want to vote on an infrastructure bill. They don't want to vote for voting rights. But we're literally trying to do that. We're literally trying to get what you're saying in some, in different ways, right? And it could be better, of course, but yeah, I agree with all of that. So the conscious pedagogue, so where's that at?
So I've been in slight hibernation. All my content is still up there. I think the last time I posted was last month. There was some stuff from Howard Zinn that I did with my kids during remote learning, where kids actually analyzed his speeches. Then there was something else I posted on my website.
And briefly explain, what is it again for people
Uh,
who may not know?
oh, sure. The Conscious Pedagogue is a website where you can download for free and also purchase high quality or highly effective materials that are culturally relevant. Right now, most of my materials are literacy based. They're not in math and science. But on a side note, I kind of went undercover this summer. I am teaching outside of my normal grade level, and I am teaching at the elementary school level for the summer. And at first, I had no desire to do this because I've never taught at that level, and also little kids. But
Right.
through this experience, I was able to see where the foundational gaps are coming from. And as a result, I've been able to create some materials that can be used at the elementary school level, because I think, if anything, elementary school teachers definitely need more support, especially
Where where are the gaps coming from?
definitely when it
Real
comes
briefly.
Sure. When it comes to literacy, so reading and writing, I'm noticing that kids are not familiar with punctuation marks. Students are struggling with phonetics. Students are at
Mm,
grades and they're reading below the appropriate lexile level. And so I'm learning how to assist those kids in performing at the appropriate grade level, but also making sure that the materials provided are culturally responsive. So those materials will be available probably, and I'll be honest, probably available by mid-September, early October. And I am going to create a workbook. That's actually something else that I'm looking into. I want to create a workbook for parents to buy. Because now that parents have experience teaching their kids, you need a workbook so you can continue this work, even though your kid is in person and at school.
man, I just want to shout you out, Aurora, Star Butler. I just really, appreciate your just flame. Like, you just so super dope, super hardworking. You are, an educator, and you're a realist as well, which is why I really appreciate our relationship. What's a quick tip would you give the teachers that's kind of related to the topic that we're talking about, and what do you want them to get from this podcast?
Um, if you ever feel overwhelmed, there is nothing wrong with taking a mental health day. You use your
Right,
mental health days. Secondly, I think every teacher should have a therapist. I'll be
mm,
honest. I think mental health is looked down upon in a lot of communities of color, and we need to normalize therapy, because
yes,
you're by yourself and you feel alone. That's when depression kicks in. That's when people can feel suicidal. That's when all of these really negative feelings and emotions can come about. So take a mental health day and utilize your medical insurance as an
right,
educator, because that is one of the best benefits of this profession, is that you have access to medical care.
right.
And get yourself a therapist. And guess what? There's also nothing wrong with telling your principal no.
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 Yo, I'm
No.
right. I'm right here with you, man. I told you, yo. I got a
Yeah.
knack for picking people for my podcast. I'm right. I'm right here with you, yo. I'm listening to every word you say.
Yeah.
Dope, dope, dope. And what do you want people to get from the podcast? I guess yeah. I mean, you said it. That was pretty it. So the conscious pedagogue please check it out. It is super dope. She has a really dope George Floyd lesson. And it's Aurora is a perfectionist. She is a perfectionist, so it's definitely going to be quality. Me and this girl, like we did New Skill Tuesdays almost every Tuesday for about 2 months on Clubhouse. Like, where you at on Clubhouse? You know, what Clubhouse at, man? It's just, maybe it's the summer. Maybe they start picking back up.
Yeah, I think, the We Outside movement is going on. So people are getting all
We
their
outside, ooh, that's funny.
yeah, so people are out here
Yeah,
having brunch. And I respect it.
right,
Get your bottomless brunch on,
for
just
sure.
get your bottomless brunch on. Just make sure you wear a mask. That Delta variant is no joke.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this. You dropping gems. Every time you stop talking, I was like, okay, yeah, that's a clip. Okay, that's a clip. Yeah, I'm about to, yeah, you got me really excited. So thank you so much for just, just coming through and representing for us teachers out there. T Simple Podcast. She gave y'all all the simplicity. All you gotta do is just, apply it and, see the results. And like, you are all star. Like, you are getting the data and you're telling teachers there's more out there. It's just more out there. And you feel it, right? I feel like that starts with our why. Like, we don't become teachers and say, like, I want to get high test scores. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not just that. We don't become teachers because we want to really impact kids. And I feel like we get lost in that, like you said, that just that tunnel vision of just trying to, get these scores, which is fine, right? Because they do mean something. We're not discrediting them, but there's more, and we want to put energy in that as well, and get the test scores. But yeah, thank you so much for just, yeah, you're OG, triple OG. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me back on. I always enjoy participating in your podcast. So
Really? Thank you.
yeah, I look forward to future collaborations. And can we please bring back New Skill Tuesday? Because
Yeah.
these teacher spaces on Clubhouse, we need to come on, guys. We need to
It's the summer. It's the summer, so nobody's.
and it's no shade, by the way, because I love the
I love
education
all of it. Right.
on Clubhouse. But like now we're getting close to the school year again. It's time for us to revamp these new skills.
Okay. Hey, if you up to it, let's get it. I'm always down to work. But I don't know if I told you I'm having a kid.
You did tell
I
me.
did tell you that. Yeah. So I'm in my daddy mode, but I'm excited. I'm just getting more focused, and just being more kind of just strategic. I'm not pushing myself as much, just kind of pushing myself when I need to push myself.
Right.
And I'm cooking a lot more too. And I don't know how that relates, but yeah.
To host you a nice virtual baby shower, either on Clubhouse,
Oh, thank you.
IG Live, and definitely send you some gifts, especially like I am the pamper queen. I will send
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to you.
I will send you mad pampers.
Okay, for sure. For sure. I'm gonna do that. I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much, Aurora.
Of course.
What you got planned for today? How's your parents doing?
My parents are okay. My mother had surgery last week, so she's healing. She also caught a really bad cold, so we just been
Oh
monitoring.
no.
Yeah, she doesn't have COVID. She's been tested twice, but
Right.
monitoring her. And my father, he's good. I convinced him to go to the gym tomorrow, so we're gonna go to the gym. My dad's 70, so I was trying to see what he could do in the gym, see if he could lift some weights,
Okay.
and maybe get an acai bowl.
That sounds good.
Yeah, life is like for me right now, like I'm at a good point in my life. I'm really
Yeah,
happy.
I could tell. I
Yeah.
could tell by your stories, all this color. It's a lot of color.
Yeah, so working out with dad, acai bowls,
Mhm.
getting chicken soup for my mother. That's my life right now. And I love every second of it.
Well, God bless them. God bless you. And I can't wait for your kids to have you. They're gonna be you super ready this year. So I already know they're gonna be eating at every word you say. So thank you so much, Aurora, for blessing the podcast.
Thank you, and God bless.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, so nice. So nice. Cool. How was that?
Good. I didn't hang up this time.